What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sports Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Logan Shanks, joined by my co-hosts, Brett Twellmeyer and Pavle Markovic. On this episode, we are going to be recapping last Saturday's spring football game, talking about the NFL draft that's coming up when this is going to be released, and then some other news for the Iowa State football team. So to kind of quickly go into some stuff about the spring game, we can talk about the format, first of all, because we kind of got there, and I was a little confused because it was supposed to start at 11. We probably get in there at like 10, 10:15, and then stuff starts around like 10:30. So, if you guys kind of want to talk about that, I was just like and it felt less like a game, which to my understanding is kind of the normal for Iowa State football, and more just like the media and fans were allowed to sit in on an Iowa State practice.
Yeah, I know when we walked in at first, I could see the players on the field doing drills and stuff. I'm like, oh, it already started. So, by the time I got up to the press box and saw, things already started to get going even before, like, the actual event started. So, it was nice because we didn't get to see the first team offense play during this scrimmage. So, it was nice to see, Rocco go out there and look consistent afterwards, throwing the ball hard and get connections with Higgins and Knoll during the practice.
I thought it was weird that they just started so early. Yeah. I mean, if your scheduled start time is 11, you'd think that you'd want to start at 11 and let the fans actually get in there, because I feel like there was a lot of them that just missed out on a whole lot of things. Yeah. Because it ended at like 11:30. So they only went for like an hour, and half of that was really during the allotted time.
Right. And, when I was walking in, I'm seeing this one guy take a pull out of a handle of a Jameson bottle. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess a lot of people were pre-gaming this. And, to the people that woke up early, Cyclone Nation's going to do that.
Every time.
But, to pregame that hard, and they only really get like a 40-minute scrimmage game, whatever you want to call it. I guess I'm just kind of glad I was working and not pregame, because I would have been pretty, disappointed. But moving into the actual game, it was, as Pavle alluded to, less of the ones. In the drills, we kind of got to see, I think I saw Abu have like one or two carries and then like a couple connections between Knoll and Higgins and Rocco and whatnot. But leading into that, it was mostly the first team defense actually out there for the scrimmage, which was interesting to see. But more so was the offense that one of the guys that stands out to me, obviously, is Dylan Lee, who really made, his presence felt. And like, this could be the guy that ends up maybe being a 3 or even the number 2 running back on the depth chart.
Yeah, when you look at last year's depth chart, Boo had to battle with Cartavius Norton and Eli Sanders. So, what we saw to Dylan Lee on Saturday was really spectacular because, coming in as a freshman, we didn't expect him to make as much of an impact as a freshman would, but he did. And he was the only one to score a touchdown in the scrimmage, which was wild for me to say because it was all just a bunch of field goal attempts and the defense stopping the offense. So, it was good to see the rushing attack led by Lee really show out because of what we could do with it this season.
Yeah, I feel like he's definitely kind of starting to step into this role, possibly being that number 2 after that performance. 84 yards, he had the 17-yard touchdown where everyone was right in the middle and he just bounces outside, finds the lane and scores. So I think that he's going to be in a good spot because we know that Abu's definitely going to be the number 1. So Dylan Lee, RB2, I think is nearly a lock for the fall.
Right. And it was weird because we also didn't get to see Carson Hansen at all either. I'm not even honestly sure if he was even suited up on Saturday. So I know Campbell on, the press conference leading into that said that they were dealing with some injuries. Maybe Carson Hansen's one of those injuries. So if, Dylan Lee is the number 2 guy, it's kind of hard to base off of a spring game performance, but he did look really good. The biggest thing obviously was just his ability to kind of, have his first move with the offensive line, or whether it was going to the left or to the right, and then quickly just find that open space like he did on that touchdown run. Was it, how long did you say it was? 17 yards. He was, really wicked fast and a true freshman coming out and, really performing well. Talk about the field goals, though. I think Iowa State, that was a big concern for me, is who's going to be the next kicker. And Kyle Conradi comes out, a walk-on. He redshirted last year as a freshman, comes into this game and drills, I believe, 4 field goals.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. Just Randy Peterson from the Des Moines Register was kind of talking with him later, and this kind of seems like an Iowa State type of guy where a walk-on that turns into a key player for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know from last season too when they had Chase Contreras, when him transferring from Nebraska really helped that Iowa State offense or special teams, let's say, get points on the board. But now with a new year and him leaving Iowa State, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for the kicker position. We already know that Jace Gilbert is on the team, but then there's another guy who's also competing for the kicking spot, which is Carter Davis. So, what we saw from especially Conradi, he really stood out to me because he was able to make those key field goals. And I think he made 4 or 5. I think he missed one, but even regardless, that's still 80% from the field goal. So, it's looking good for him so far to really earn that job for the fall.
When he stepped out there and made that first one, I think it was from 41 yards. Yeah. And the second one he made was from 40. I was like, this might be the guy.
Yeah. And you talk about the miss. I mean, I believe that was from 50. So
it was far.
And in those conditions, I mean, for anyone that was there, if you weren't, I mean, it was windy, it was cold. Yeah. So I was kind of talking about with him after the game, like not ideal conditions, but you still make 4 field goals, 2 of which from 40 plus yards. So, and yeah, he was competing with Carter Davis, who was a transfer from FAU. So for him to kind of, I think really seemed like at the end of this spring, season, just beat out a guy that has more kicking experience than him. I mean, it was just really surprising to me, but now that you think about it, it kind of seems like an Iowa State guy that is a walk-on trying to earn a scholarship and, just showing out during that spring game. Another thing we got to see in the spring game, a little less on the run game, and, just back to the play calling with new offensive coordinator Taylor Mauser, just a little bit of what we, thought we were going to see, which is just Iowa State airing the ball out a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of downfield attempts, even though Rocco Beck did not play in the scrimmage when it was open to fans. So it was nice to see that the offense got to open it up a little bit more, try and get more balls downfield. But, in terms of receiving wise, a lot of people got work. A lot of people got different passes, not really relying on one guy. The one play that stood out to me was Jonathan Vanderwall. He led the Cyclones with 3 catches for 18 yards. And, even before the actual scrimmage for when fans came in, he was really impressing me. He was getting a lot of the work with the second and third team as one of the more receivers, and it's kind of hard for him to kind of stand out because of how talented the receiver room is. So, it was nice to see him get that work in and be the leading receiver for this spring game.
When you talk about lots of players getting those reps, it's important because that fight for that wide receiver 3 spot, it's still on. So having the ability to have a lot of guys be able to contribute in some way is definitely a big benefit.
And what sucks with that is, with that third wide receiver spot still being open, honestly, like the defense for Iowa State, I mean, they had their ones out there pretty much the entire game, mostly like 1s and 2s. There was almost like no receiving yards in this game. So, Jonathan Vanderwall, he did play well, but that's not really a guy that's fighting for that third spot in my mind. I was going in there wanting to look at guys like Daniel Jackson, Benny Nagoye, and Isaiah Alston, and you didn't really get to see anything from any of them. So, and that's nothing really on the quarterbacks. JJ played, Connor Moberly, Major Cantrell, and then did Tanner Hughes throw a ball?
Yeah,
okay, and you just didn't really get to see a lot of that because the defense really just showed out. I don't even remember what was the final score.
33-4.
Yeah, 33-4.
Defense beat the offense.
Yeah,
Score got me.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean,
Score got me.
It was just kind of, I know that's kind of how they do, most spring games do, is they do their own kind of scoring, but I mean, it definitely makes sense because the defense showed out.
They did. And, they had 5 sacks on the day, and Iowa State's not really a team that's known for getting to the quarterback a lot and actually finishing the job. So it was nice to see that they were able to get 5 sacks, even though it wasn't really an actual sack. Obviously they can't actually really sack the quarterback. They don't want to risk for an injury. So, it was really good to see players on the defense step up, even if it wasn't for the 1s, to try and from the 2s to make it to the 1s for fall.
When you talk about those sacks, one of the ones that kind of stuck out to me was Dominique Orange. The play where I think it was J.J. Cole was in at quarterback, all the time in the world, and Orange just rushes back there, runs him down, and lunges out, touches him, gets the sack.
Yeah.
So that one was a really nice effort play I saw from him.
Yeah, and I mean, it should be really encouraging from the defensive standpoint because you knew that the defense was returning a lot of guys, and that's who we saw out there. You saw a lot of Bo Freeler, or actually Jontez Williams and Jamison Patton played a lot too, so they looked really good. Tayshaun James led the way in tackles. So overall, I mean, yeah, just if you outside of the offense, you getting Dylan Lee as a standout, you really just kind of saw that the defense is probably still going to be. I know it's against the 2s and 3s of Iowa State, but you do still got to think that they're always a step ahead of their opponents.
Yeah, John Haycock really does a tremendous job of leading this defense. You know, they even had like younger guys, like I know Matt Campbell mentioned during his post-spring game interview with Zamir Hawk, who got one of the sacks during the game. He was looking really good as well. Like even though he wasn't with the first teamers necessarily, he was with the second teamers and still really showed out among the younger defensive players as well.
And a lot of that might just stem from the scheme. Excuse me. Probably going to be, I mean, I know that all three of the groups on defense are going to be ones to watch, but knowing that you're going to have a big group of defensive backs that are playing well is definitely going to work well with this system.
Yeah, and there was, I mean, just really, Pavel, you got the stats over there. Can you give me I would bet that there was probably less than 20 total completions, and I believe it was just maybe under or a little bit over 100 yards receiving.
I'll tell you the full stats for all 4 quarterbacks: 15 for 20, 103 yards.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So, I mean, but this is kind of what we got to expect. I mean, you're putting in guys like Major Cantrell and Connor Moberly, both true freshmen at Iowa State, and then J.J. Cole, who didn't really get to see a lot of time.
More defensive heavy, like we mentioned, the 33-4 score. So, you know, it was a good time to get to see some of those younger guys officially now with the spring game, with some fans able to actually see it too before the summer kicks in.
One of the things I thought was interesting with the quarterback room specifically was as the scrimmage thing, as the spring game was going on, all the quarterbacks were standing like on the field, kind of off to the side, but Rocco was really the only one that was truly on the sideline. So kind of showed that he wasn't really going to play a whole lot, and probably for good reason.
Yeah, and, you know, I was just a little surprised because I thought maybe we'd see Rocco get in there a little bit, but really kind of like I said earlier in this podcast, it really just seemed like we were in on a, you know, Iowa State practice that just didn't really have the ones offensively, but going back to that defense, still looking really good, even after losing TJ Tampa, who will be waiting to hear his name called possibly this Thursday in the first round of the NFL draft. But I think most certainly on day 2, if not on day 1. But to kind of get into that, I mean, we got number 1 Bears fan over here. Do you think they should draft him number 1 overall?
Oh, absolutely not. You know, with our team needs, you know, it's obviously going to be the USC quarterback, Caleb Williams. I mean, would I like to see TJ Tampa on that Bears team? Yes, it would be nice to see another Cyclone. Formerly, it was David Montgomery, who was the last Cyclone to be on the Bears. But anyway, it's not the point. But otherwise, you know, the Bears already have kind of a stacked cornerback room with Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, and Kyler Gordon. So, I mean, for the Bears, I feel like it wouldn't – I mean, obviously it would help, but I feel like we wouldn't necessarily need him. I don't know about you, Brett, for the Jets fan.
I don't well, there's 2 ways I would look at this. So – as a Jets fan, we have a lot of Cyclones that are on the team. We've got Breece Hall, Alan Lazard, Will McDonald. TJ Tampa would make a great 4th addition, but he's not really someone that we need because we've already got Sauce Gardner out there in the cornerback position. We really need a tackle. And I've been saying this for probably the past like 2 or 3 years. We need a tackle because now that we finally got our quarterback situation hopefully figured out with Rodgers, hopefully not, tearing his ACL or tearing his Achilles again. Watch it be the ACL this year.
No, not this year. No.
That'd be terrible. No. But there's 3 tackles out there that are pretty highly, ranked. So with the 10th pick, I think that the Jets should and will take a tackle.
Maybe they'll, trade up and get Joe Alt, but that's neither here nor there. Also, 2 things for both of you. Well, you guys do have a tackle, Mekhi Becton, right?
Yeah.
Mr. IR. And then you guys still have an Iowa State alum in Chase Allen.
Not
Last
anymore.
time, not what? Did you get cut?
Yep.
Dang.
He's
Sorry.
been gone for a while, actually, I think. Either that or he's on the practice squad, but I think I'm most likely sure he's gone.
Isn't it Dr. Chase Allen?
Yeah.
It is Dr. Chip. Well, he was at Iowa State for almost a day.
I remember seeing him in the
My bad.
preseason. You know, I really wanted him to succeed on the...
My bad, Chase. Didn't mean to throw a shot at you there. I thought he was still on the Bears. But, I mean, if we're going to talk about our teams, I think, if the Cowboys drafted TJ Tampa at 24, I'd honestly be pretty mad because I don't really think we need a corner right now. But where do we, I guess, kind of think that, it seems like Pavle, and the Chiefs at 32. So, really, it's probably going to end up being the late round unless someone would really, I guess, kind of take a swing on him, kind of like how the Jets did with Will McDonald at 15, I want to say, last year. But honestly, the more that I've looked at it, I know it would be awesome to have, 2 years back-to-back with a Cyclone drafted in the first round, but it really just would make more sense to me. He is really seen more as kind of like a guy that's going to go early in day 2, so that wouldn't surprise me. But if we're gonna talk about where he would best fit at, with how he played at Iowa State, he's gonna want to go somewhere that's more zone heavy.
Agreed. In some teams that come to mind, like you said, from those 5, even Buffalo and Detroit really stick out to my mind because Buffalo lost Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, all those, and Jordan Poyer, all those key defensive backs because they're kind of like, I don't know, they're not rebuilding. I'm kind of saying they're retooling because they also lost Stephon Diggs. So I think TJ would also excel there as one of the more one of the better quarters, not more better. And then we talk about Detroit, with Montgomery already there, of course. It would be nice to see. Plus, they lost Cam Sutton over the offseason with whatever legal issues you had. And so seeing him in Detroit, who's looking to compete again, they went to the NFC Championship game and lost to Brock Purdy. So I feel like if TJ were to go there, be on a really competitive team that's going to want Super Bowl aspirations, I think he'd perfectly want to go there.
I'd love to see TJ team up with Dave Montgomery on the Lions. I think that'd be a really fun duo because the Lions are definitely on the up and up, could possibly make another deep run this year, and having TJ on the team would be pretty awesome.
You just got to hope that if he does get drafted by the Lions, he is, going to go with Dan Campbell's mentality of, biting kneecaps off and, just being that line out there. But, whatever kind of terminology you want to use for Dan Campbell. But I think also, you guys all make great points there. But what you really don't want to see happen is him, and I'm using a lot of comparisons to Will McDonald's situation, so I feel bad for Brett over here.
It's fair.
But you don't want to see him get drafted to a team that has a lot of depth there because I feel like that is kind of what I think Will McDonald is an NFL edge rusher. He obviously is, but that he has the talent there to be a starter. But I think what sucks for him is that he went to a team that didn't necessarily need it. So it felt like whenever he was in, I'm sure this is how I feel, is like you have to make a play every time you're in there. And he did make some plays, but there's definitely some times in there where you think, why, they got to put Will McDonald because he is their first round draft pick. But, just moving it more to TJ's side, I wouldn't really want to see him go somewhere kind of, I guess, like if I just want to pick out somewhere here, like the Buccaneers, because I feel like they have a lot of depth there at the defensive back position. So I guess what are your guys' kind of views on that?
Didn't they just trade Carlton Davis to Detroit?
Right, but I guess just for kind of defensive back purposes, like they have Antoine Winfield still there, but
they still got some guys to compete nonetheless. To your point, I think you said it was final 5 picks of Bills, Lions, was it Ravens?
Bills, right? Lions, Ravens,
Ravens,
Niners.
Out of those 5 teams, I would least like Tampa to go to Baltimore because they still have guys like Marlon Humphrey, who is leading that DB room. And, all 4 of those other teams, like we talked about Buffalo and Detroit already, like San Francisco with Charvarius Ward, and then the Chiefs just traded L'Jarius Sneed, their best corner, to Tennessee. So they're going to be looking for another CB1, hopefully, and that could be filled with TJ Tampa in the last pick of the first round.
Yeah.
And we know how good the Chiefs defense is. I feel like they were the ones that kind of led the charge in winning that Super Bowl last season.
Yeah.
And with the system that they have there, I think that Tampa could fit in really well, be part of a championship caliber program and possibly make it back to another one.
But then again, it brings up, like, if he does get drafted to the Chiefs, that'd be awesome. He'd be probably winning some more Super Bowls within the next couple of years. But, is he really going to be able to see playing time with how young their defense is there? Currently, right now, ESPN has him as the 8th best available cornerback. So I think it would actually, it's going to take a lot for him to go in the first round. You would have to see guys, again, like DeJean, Mitchell, Arnold, and McKinstry all go before him, and that's going to be kind of interesting to see, because you already think that there's probably going to be like 4 or 5 quarterbacks drafted in this first round. To ask for like 5 corners to also get taken in the first round, when I believe last year there wasn't that many as well, and with a wide receiver talent as well coming into this draft. So, I think my overall prediction would probably be that TJ doesn't go first round on Thursday. But, it is the NFL draft. You see a lot of organizations make draft day moves, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and to your point, Logan, that's what I was going to mention. Like, I feel like if Tampa were to went to the draft last year instead of waiting another season this past season, like, because this defensive back position is so loaded. That's why he's ranked number 8, because there's so many guys in front of him that are have more talent. I don't know about more talent, but still have stood out more than Tampa. So, if he went last year, I know because Devon Witherspoon went last year, he was highlighted, the corner from Illinois. But I feel like he would have joined Will McDonald as one of the 2 first rounders. I feel like, because it would have been, he still was as good going if he would have drafted last year.
Yeah, there's definitely the double-edged sword there of staying in college, perfecting your craft before going to the league, but then also having that opportunity there with now, because you did that, there's all these other cornerbacks standing in your way.
And so I just looked at, I believe there was 4 corners taken in last year's first round. And to kind of go off what you were saying, Pavel, I guess talent, if the word you were probably searching for is, the words you were searching for was probably, the guys above him are just guys that have played at, a better level. Yeah. You got guys from Alabama, Georgia above him, Clemson.
SEC schools, yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame NFL teams for overlook. Iowa State has been overlooked a lot in the NFL drafts.
Look at Brock Purdy.
Yeah, Brock Purdy. Will McDonald was the first Iowa State player taken in the first round in, was it like 20 years or a long time. So, yeah. I get it. I understand that, but that's just kind of what might make his story even better is all the teams that might pass up on him. He goes early to mid second round. So, I'm looking forward to it. I'm usually not a big nut on the NFL draft, but when it gets closer, like when it becomes the week of, I'm like, oh, well, it's something interesting to look at. Let's just hope the Cowboys don't go out and mess it up again. But
as I say about my Bears
and the Jets.
Yeah. But
all 2 of our teams.
Yeah. Sending some prayers out later tonight. But to wrap things up a little bit, it was on my way over here, it was announced that Iowa State will be opening up their football season in 2025 against Kansas State in Ireland. So hopefully I did that accent well.
Seamus would be proud.
Ireland. But that's just really, I guess, interesting. And the first thing that came to my mind was, what are the fans going to look like? I know Iowa State travels well, but all the way across the pond, what are we thinking?
I think they will because, so just kind of for reference, like last season, I think it was last season, the Northwestern Nebraska game. Mm-hmm. It was either last season or 2 seasons.
One of them too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Anyway, there was a ton of Nebraska fans there. Mm-hmm. And we know how passionate they are. And I feel like Iowa State and Nebraska fans are sort of on the same level when it comes to just passion and wanting to support their teams. And knowing that the stadium sells alcohol.
That's true.
A big thing too. We know how Iowa State fans like that. And I know I saw Brent Bloom, director of the We Will Collective, is in the works of possibly getting Ames Lager at the game. So that would be a huge deal if that happens.
That'd be really cool.
I think I don't necessarily think it's going to be like a large crowd. Obviously, it's all the way in Ireland. So I know that some fans will definitely travel there, of course. But I know it's a really cool opportunity for Iowa State to get this opportunity to play in a different country against another Big 12 opponent. We're used to the Farmageddon being during Thanksgiving time, cold temperatures, and now we have to go to across the pond to Ireland to go play. So watch them. So I think it's going to be fun regardless, because it's going to be uncharted territory for both teams. We don't know how many of Kansas State's fans are going to travel compared to Iowa State. So I feel like it's going to be a really good game, and obviously to focus on the 2024 season before we can focus on that Week 0 game.
That'll be. You kind of bring up some good points there. It's really awesome that they chose this game specifically, because while it does suck to lose Farmageddon in either Ames or Manhattan, it's still a good pick to be played in Ireland, because you didn't want to see Iowa State go to Ireland and play like Houston or a UCF or one of the new teams. You wanted to see someone that they got history with. And I think that's, just a really good pick by them. The big question is, I'm going to have to, start tailgating for that one pretty early. It's probably going to kick off at 9 a.m. because it makes me think back to, the NFL's been doing this for a couple years now.
London,
and it's always awesome to wake up on Sunday and be like, oh, well, I don't have to wait till noon for the games to start. I can wake up and game's going to be kicking off at 9. But I just think that's really cool. It's a big move for Iowa State, the Big 12 conference, to be doing something like that. So, it's going to be really awesome to see in 2025. Who knows? Maybe the Iowa State Daily will be making enough money that we can send some reporters out there. But
maybe.
We'll see.
You never know. Yeah. This will be the first international game in Iowa
State's
history,
too.
Yeah,
that's a good point. They had that. I was looking at, they had that on the website, and I was like, well, it was probably a good guess that it would be, but I think it's just going to be an awesome game and venue for that rivalry to be played at. Yeah. So that's all we got here on this episode of Sports Weekly. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.